appreciate. So I have a couple of thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we can start off from there. So it's around, my thoughts is around, like for today, my thoughts is around work and relationship management. Yeah. Um, Maybe business relationship and relationships generally,
Okay.
right? So
So relationship management in the context of work.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, work and business,
Okay.
right? Basically, so it would be good for me to know how you manage projects and tasks before you got to senior leadership position and now.
Okay. Interesting. I think I'll start with my approach
Yeah.
and then try and see how it has varied over time.
Mhm.
So first, I think it's very, very hard to separate the people from the business. In the background, I always say people cannot be bipolar. Like you can't have two separate personalities, right? If someone likes you or likes your personality, they're likely to do business with you. If they dislike or hate you, again, it's mad. Even if they did business with you, it would be very, very hard to do. So the first thing I tend to do is build rapport with the people, understand them as an individual and their aspirations, because when you approach a manager in a business, they have targets, they have goals to meet.
Yeah.
So even when you come and you want them to do you this favor or you want to collaborate, without thinking about it as nefarious, you have to present what is in it for them
Okay.
before thinking about yourself, because naturally you know what you want, so you're always going to lean to what you want.
Yeah.
So before I do that, I start to think about what is in it for Gabriel, what is in it for Julia, whoever it is.
Yeah.
And to do that, you have to understand them. So you have an open chat about your thoughts, their thoughts, and I always push for them to tell me what they would like to achieve, right? If they are trying to grow their business and I have something that I want to grow a business, I work for my personal business, I have to look for the angle that helps them.
Yeah.
Because when we do that, now we are collaborating, even at that level. Two is I try to build trust. And to build trust sometimes requires you to be vulnerable. You can over promise and under deliver. I like to under promise and over deliver.
Why?
Why? I mean, as humans, we have expectations, right? We've struggled to have this conversation. We've kept saying, oh, let's do this. And then things don't work out.
Yeah.
Right? That's the circle of life. But you have to build a level of understanding with you and a partner so that when you let them down, they don't think you did it on purpose. Right? Because most times people think about, if everything works out, I'll bring you this.
Yeah.
But what happens when it doesn't work out?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because if I ask you to do something and you have to move a lot of pieces around work, you are leveraged, or your hand is on the chopping blocks if you have limited work resources. So I've made you commit the resources you have, the relationships that you have in your workplace. And so if things go south, if I walk away, there are still repercussions to you. So being vulnerable enough to say, look, this is best case scenario. This is worst case scenario. I see us landing in the middle here if I can pull this off, but I'll need help from you. So that they don't expect too much, but on your end, you work your ass off to give them the best of their effort, because you start to have an understanding where people will say, okay, when you say something, you're going to keep your word. if not today, tomorrow, if not tomorrow, the next day.
Yeah.
You become dependable and they love to do work with you. Sometimes I'm shy when I walk into an office and someone says, so I introduce myself, I say I'm Christian, and someone says, the Christian. And you're like, why? Like, yeah, there's a person who recommended me to have a conversation with you. And it's really because, right from university, I used to share a lot of my ideas with my seniors at work. Some things are hit and misses. Others, you get it good and you get it done enough for someone to say, well, yeah, the next time I have a complicated project, I want you on the brainstorming team. So just being dependable enough to people and showing them that you will go the full mile. So that's kind of the approach I always use. I want you to shine in your business. It can't be that because you worked with me, yeah, things went well. No, because Gabriel found a collaboration with another party and it succeeded, Gabriel is a star, right? That's the value I'll give you over and above the business transaction. So that's kind of the approach I have had over time. Now, how has it changed with senior leadership? Yeah, so in my I'd say my first formal job, because I'll give you context of my formal job and the first informal job. I didn't really have risk there, and I'll start with the foundation. So right out of secondary school, I said I'd get a job in my vacation before joining university to build some work ethic. So I was this little kid at the workplace, interior design company, in my opinion, the largest in the country. And it's a woman-owned business, so 80% of the management is women. So they would look at you as a child, right? And because of that, I'll be comfortable walking into their spaces. You go into an office and you ask, what are you doing? Or like, how can I help? So my bosses used to give me errands, which ideally I did not have the skills or the experience to do. But the expectation was for me to do them. So if you need to ask someone, if you need to go with someone, find a way of executing the task. So I started building confidence. I would, talk to people. I learned procurement. I learned stores management. I learned client relations because, I go with Suna. Suna meets his clients, their corporations. Listen to how he talks to them. Look at how he negotiates the contract. Pick out a few ideas, go back, ask him, why did you do it this way, not this way? So I understood it, but there was no responsibility.
Suna was your boss then?
Suna was someone on the sales team,
Okay.
right? But he was like that guy who was okay with me going with him all over, like it's fine to have someone following you around. I ended up becoming his assistant in a context because now he could call a client and say, I'm going to send Christian. He'll pick up this document. It's fine. And he gave me the confidence to go out and sell. And we sell very premium furniture. So I liked his confidence. I decided to say, am I allowed to go out to sell? Because I was really an office assistant, delivering documents, invoices, picking up payments, but never selling to a customer. Okay. So I asked for permission. They said, well, we will not give it to you as a formal job, but you can try in your downtime. So I'd get my schedule for the day, try and get it done quickly. I had another friend of mine who was doing his internship there. He was called Hans. So we would walk around, pitch to people. Tell you, I remember that I walked to a judge's house and I was pitching furniture. And at the time, there was a very popular 6-seater car, the Toyota Ipsum. It was about 17 million Uganda shillings. And the sofa set we were trying to sell him was 20 million. He says, young man, so you're telling me I should sit on furniture that's the equivalent of a car? I was like, in 20 years, you will not buy furniture. You will reupholster it, with when the curtains change, you can come. We will make a change to the furniture. We didn't make the sale. Interestingly, I think a year and a half later, he bought furniture. So it was never my sale, didn't make commission, but it was good to see that the customer converted eventually. And my boss was happy about it. But we kept going at it, and I was looking at it from the perspective of, so most times people talk about the sales that are successful, not the sales that fail. So I spent time understanding how to deal with frustration. You go out to sell, you're really looking for that commission, everyone is saying no, you've walked around, you've broken a sweat, you're exhausted. But I would smile, like, because I wanted to learn how to deal with rejection. And today when I'm going to a pitch, I always tell my wife, in the morning, I'm like, today is bullshit day. Now she knows the term. And bullshit day is, I'm going to make a sale or I'm going to pitch someone, and I expect, I cannot build my expectations, but let me go and do my best pitch. And at the end of the day, we sit and chat about what went well, what was hard. Did I get the sale, or did I get them over the line? Do they look interested? And I started looking forward to it. I'm no longer scared. Rejection is just a part of it. Make 100 pitches, get one through, you're happy about it, but don't be frustrated about the ones that don't go through. So that was mostly my informal context. But one day, there was no manager at work. And so we had to make a decision. The staff, the paid staff, were afraid of making the decision. And one of them said, look, for you, you're like the grandchild of the owner of this business. If you make a mistake in the decision, nothing is going to happen. Maybe the business loses some money. Maybe we have to repair a relationship with a customer, but there is no tangible backlash to you. For us, if we make this decision, we can't get fired. I was like, you guys get paid. So I left. It was a Saturday afternoon. So I left. I went, watched rugby. Got home. Monday morning, I'm called into their office and they read me the riot act. And I sit and I say, but I'm the youngest person in this building. Surely everyone can make this decision for it to come to me. And my boss said, see, when you take on responsibility, when people trust you to make a decision, you have to attempt to make the best decision you can. You can't be guaranteed of succeeding, but at least you have to show that you tried your best to do what was best for the business. Okay, and that's how you earn trust. So after that, I learned that you can't, look away. You can't be at work and something is going on and you like face away. Like I didn't see that. You have to be proactive, because whilst you may not get rewarded for it, no one is going to say you did a good job by ignoring the work or the responsibility. So I picked that up, and when I went into my first job, I tried to execute it on day one, which was a mess. So we, again, similar situation, no senior leadership at the workplace, heavy decision to make. There is a lot of pressure. People ignore the work. So I take a decision. But here I said, the information I have is enough for me to know not to take this decision. So I don't take it and I write an email. On Monday, again, similar scenario. My boss yells at me, the CFO yells at me, the CEO yells at me. But the group CEO was in town. So he calls me into the office and he's like, you're the boy, you're the riotous boy. It's like, no, but I'm the one who refused to take the decision. We were supposed to ship out some product and I held on to it. And so he asked me, what made you confident about that? So I then told him, look, this is the process we follow. We are supposed to get approval from here, comfort from different teams. And that day, none of the teams were comfortable shipping the product. So ultimately, even if it came down to me, I didn't have all that was required for the product to go out. So I asked, why didn't you tell any of the managers? I was like, on Saturday, I sent an email to everyone. On Monday, everyone has yelled at me without asking why on earth I chose to make that decision. And so he said, well, I'm going to put you in charge of dispatching product. So what I now expect is you must take the decision, because at least you have shown me you know all the information required to make that decision. But I was a bit bitter that I got yelled at when I didn't take a decision. I got yelled at when I took a decision.
Okay.
So there was no reward for it. But down the line, I learned my risk tolerance. I have a very high risk tolerance in some decisions. But some of the things that give me comfort is I have learned to do a certain level of due diligence.
Okay.
Right? I will get my checklist and say, if I'm going to make this decision, I need to check these boxes. I will not be 100% perfect. If you ask me to be perfect, it's going to be really hard. I'm going to tell myself, if I'm at 75% of every possible control, I'm going to take that decision and see if the 25% is the problem,
Okay.
right? And I've seen it with a lot of my peers and a lot of the workplaces people have found it easy to give me responsibility because I'm able to come out and say, look, I think I should take this decision, or I want to take this risk because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the other 3 things that I don't know which direction it will go. And things could go very bad, things could go very good. But if they go bad, I still take responsibility for it. So I've covered your ass if you have to. I don't mind if you blame me for it. And so, guys trust, and they give you free reign. If you take a decision, even though you know it's for someone else, they do now consider that you thought about how you're exposing me, you thought about all the risks that you could perceive. There are certain risks where, to be honest, you don't know until something happens. But people are so afraid of those risks that they don't try and make decisions. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, what's the thing? I want to see the fear I have. For the longest time, I was afraid of planning for a month. So I used to think about, so I think when I was 19, I wrote what I needed to achieve by 30. And then I started working backwards of what do I need to achieve by, this semester, next year. I built so much frustration. I'll just go through cycles of depression because I was always late on my plan.
Okay.
And when people would say, why don't you just think about the next 3 weeks, the next 4 weeks? I'd be like, no. What happens when that time passes? There are other 3 weeks, there are other 4 weeks that I'm not ready for. So I was very strong with planning. And then I was asked, why don't you just plan your one step ahead? And I battled with it, but I think I now have a bit of a balance on, okay, so for such an issue, I think I can plan 6 months ahead. For this issue, we're going to wing it. We're going to plan 2 steps and see. So trying to strike that balance, and does taking on more responsibilities and being responsible for more teams has kind of helped to build that, because you can't have a team where everyone is the same. 2, they can't all think like you, and you have to manage that. And so as you try to manage the people, you end up managing yourself or adapting, yourself. For instance, if you're managing people who are easy to anger, you learn to be more relaxed. If you are managing people who procrastinate or take their time, and you also like to take your time, you're going to start pushing. So saying, as you manage different teams, you adapt to what the efficient way is to manage them and bring productivity, because people are different. I mean, there are people who work well in teams, there are people who prefer to work in silos, there are those who take a lot of time, and then there are those who are highly energetic. I'm highly energetic, and so you find yourself having to understand the person and saying, my energy is too much, or my energy is too little, or I need to change a few things here. Because I mean, for the formative years of my career, I worked with people who are mostly twice my age.
Okay.
And in the context of Uganda, especially at that time, you had a lot of multinationals that had transitioned their leadership to local leadership. And then you had these individuals with very large egos. And so, coming out of university, what can you teach me? That was the kind of attitude. So we had this small unit where we were business analysts, and each of us had like this small thing you had to really go into for the business. And for me, it was distribution. So helping distributors move their product, the logistics of the business. And
Fine. Okay.
and so you are advising a distributor and a salesperson who has done it for the past 2 decades where they're going wrong, and you're bright and shiny from university. You're using your theoretical knowledge, and so it was very tough dealing with people. And the hack I got was, the problem is the information is coming from me, someone younger. So I befriended my boss, because the structure was the sales team were older than me. There was work they could assign me, but I didn't report to them. I reported to their boss,
Okay.
because I was also analyzing their performance. And so I befriended the boss. And so I would give him my analysis. Look, this is what I see. This is what I think we should do. What do you think? So then, we have a back and forth. He's teaching me their perspective. He's teaching me some of the things that are missing. But some of the times you had this very strong point, and so I would nudge him to be the one to communicate that information so that people think it's authentic.
Okay.
And so we would spend time practicing things. So even when he left, he'd call me to consult on a few projects, and we'd use the same exact strategy. We go into a room, I pitch him, I tell him what I think, we have sessions around it, then he can go and talk to the team. And as I progressed in terms of age and responsibility, you then have a bit of the team that listens to you, because it does come into their productivity. They can see that how to use that information. And then there are those who really old school. If you're not older than me, you don't have wisdom, therefore you cannot teach me. So I got used to working with that group of people. And then there was this flip where I started working with people who are my age or younger than me. And the difference was, I think, for our generation, the millennials, there were a lot of people who wanted to achieve success quite quickly. You admire your boss, he's driving a luxury car, you're taking public transport and you want to drive the luxury car, but you don't want to go through the work it takes to earn the money that can afford you that car. Immediate gratification. And it was hard because for me I wanted to learn. And it's okay, if someone pays him enough to own that car, the reason is they generate enough value, right? So whereas there were people who are saying I have to become the manager because the salary is tagged to the manager. So I tried to identify workplaces that allowed me to grow, but there was a lot of frustration as well, because you look at your peers and they're moving up quite fast, and you're thinking, is my strategy wrong? Should I just try to be a manager, befriend my boss, get promoted, befriend the next guy, try and just work that route? Or do I become a subject matter expert and over time build my value so that I don't need to be a junior or a senior for people to appreciate the value I have? I just have to create a working relationship with them. So I decided to go for I left, it was a telco. I went to a payments aggregator, again one of the largest, and I was just doing product evaluation. So learning, they had some issues where they built very good products. They had like very big anchor clients, but they were not selling to the smaller clients. They're managing the relationships, pricing the products well, telling the customer what product works for them. When in some instances, a customer would tell us something they want to do, and then we would get an off-the-shelf product and say this will work for you.
Yeah.
So I applied myself more to that. Okay, so this is what you want to do. Why? I'm trying to solve this problem. Why? Like, so that you're able to tell the person, I think this product will work for you now, but that's not the real thing you need. So you end up upselling the customer, or in some instances, making them save money where they don't invest in a product they thought they needed and spend the money on a product they actually need. So I spent a lot of time there. One of the clients actually offered me a job because they came in, they wanted a system, they wanted a strategy, and I sat in a boardroom with them and I told them what they were saying doesn't make sense, because they had an agent network, they had tech, they were trying to use another platform. I told them the cost structure wouldn't work for them, give them a bit of advice. But again, I was bullshitting. I haven't executed it. What would I know? And so they offer me a job and say, well, come and execute what you're saying. And I said, well, I still like the exposure I'm getting. So I continued with my job until I had like this peak where I said, beyond this, there's no more growth unless I just expand my role. So I chose to take on another role. I joined a startup. I moved from a business where I didn't need to know the operations and finance of running the business.
Okay.
I was just really doing process management, performance management. There's someone else taking care of the financing of the business. There's someone else, dealing with all the other aspects. I moved to a startup where I thought I was there to build an operational model, so a commercial role, which expanded into fundraising, which expanded into operations. So I ended up being the CEO of the company. And now at that point, I started to see different risks, right? When startups don't have runway, unless you are responsible for the staff and the suppliers, you just think it's about money in the bank. When you oversee the human resource function, you start to see that it's people. There are suppliers whose success depend on the success of the business. You close shop, they close shop. They have employees. You close shop, they close shop. They are customers who are enjoying your service. So suddenly you feel a much larger weight than just keeping a business alive. And I ended up making some sacrifices which I didn't. If you had asked me 3-4 years before that, would you not take out a salary? I'd be like, no, I need the money. But then you are responsible for people and you say, okay, I see why people take decisions of this nature. And so I think I grew up quite fast in that aspect. It was like this very short, high pressure period, which when I came out of had kind of changed the way I look at businesses and look at managing businesses. And in part, I think that's why I end up being either on a senior leadership or adjacent to it, because now my perception of managing a business goes beyond doing the function, right? Like you can do your function, but everything else is not working, right? You can do your function well, but the business is not growing, right? So that's kind of how I've ended up growing through it, but my fundamentals have remained the same. Build very strong, trusting relationships, try and manage people beyond just the job, because there's getting people to fit the role, and then there's growing the people so that they can take up multiple roles, or if the role they have doesn't really fit their skill set, giving them the comfort that they can try something else. Yeah, and even for me personally, growing through, I feel like I grow as a business grows, because I don't learn the same problem. You join a business that has this problem, you solve it, you have like this 2-3 week period when you're in euphoria, and then you wake up and you're like, business must continue, there's a new problem, which I think when you think about it, it's like you as an individual. As a baby, like my daughter, she's struggling to crawl. That's the challenge she has. Then she's going to crawl. Then she's going to struggle to walk, right? So much as she's happy she started crawling, she must walk. When she finishes walking, she must go to school. Like these, as you grow, you have these wins that compound. They don't take away the challenges ahead. They just give you a much larger base, right? Because you solve one problem, then you solve two, then you solve three, then you've solved 100 problems. So you have one problem, no matter its gravity. Yeah, you've solved 100 before. Yeah. So just apply yourself to this problem. So personally, I also grow. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, it's been juggling from thoughts to thoughts, and like a lot of I would say nuggets to pick here and there. Like so you mentioned something about, and I think it's part of what you said earlier, like trusting relationship, right? And I think I can give it to you in terms of your connection base. I think you have like some rich connection base in terms of strength, like connection strength. Like how do you manage your connections, your relationship in terms of both work, personal? Of course, maybe I'm not talking about romantic, but but yeah, yeah.
But I mean, it's hard. Relationships are the funny ones. They're the ones where I wing it the most, right? I try to be available professionally. A lot of the people I've met have made me meet other people, right? So say I want to get a service, but I have no clue which service provider provides that service. I'm going to go into my network of people and say, guys, does any one of you know someone who can provide this? Okay. Whether they do or not, whatever leads they give me, I'm appreciative of them. But if I am able to succeed, I come back and inform that person that it's because of you, Gabriel, that I managed to. Even if there is another party that has executed, it all started with, there's this one person. So it's kind of like if I want to get to know who in the bank makes a decision, I don't walk up to the bank. If I know a bank teller, if I know a security guard, whoever I know, I ask that person, right? Because I feel it also empowers them to know they contribute. Imagine a situation where, say, what's the biggest thing that has happened? Say a man went to space. Let's use Elon Musk, who is popular right now. Say you're the person who recommended a teacher. I'm building a hypothetical. So you went to school with Elon Musk. You went and told the teacher, this guy is really, really, really smart. The teacher went and spoke to the headmaster, who went and got a scholarship. And then he ended up in an Ivy League school, and he comes up with SpaceX. Do you ever ask yourself why most of those people go back to, there's this person, like it all started with this person. They were always encouraging you or forming you, or they were the lifeline. They gave you a lifeline. That you had the ability, you just needed the right people around you. But there is that person who put the ability and the right people around you together. So always appreciating them, whether things work out or not. Because maybe it's not for you. Maybe someone else reaches out to them. They'll be willing to help. And I use that because recently I saw on Twitter, someone posted and said, if you have money, do not give the children of today money. And I was like, why? So the backstory to it was, and I don't know if they were still also building a hypothetical or it was an experience they had, but the picture that we're bringing is when you have money, so many people are around you and you help them. When you go broke, you need help or you don't need help, but the way people treat you is different, right? And is different in, I think, a noticeably bad way, right? In the context of Uganda, when you have a bit of money, when you're young, they call you mzee, which is old man, to mean wise and capable. And so when there's a problem in the village, you have to be involved in discussions because your thinking and your ability to execute your thinking is good or is respected. When you don't have money, you can't sit at that table because what do you bring to the table? The reality of it should be, if you had value at a certain point, you remain with value, right? If you could make $1 million as an entrepreneur, you could make it again. It doesn't, not having the million doesn't now make you a failed entrepreneur. It should just quite literally mean you're an entrepreneur who doesn't have $1 million. But the way society flips it, it is as though to punish you, right? And because of what the guy said, and I don't know if he was intentional in doing it, because I can imagine if there are so many people there who say, I helped people, but when I stopped being able to help them, they now looked at me as less worthy. Something like, if all the people who help ended up having that same attitude, then no one is going to help, right? And so to pay it forward, to allow another person or another generation benefit or grow, whoever gives you a lifeline, you acknowledge, you thank, because you're at the very least you're motivating them to help the next person, right? A scenario that's particular to us: when we were getting married, my wife had spoken to service providers for about 2 years. By the time we got married, they had done, I think, 4 or 5 weddings for people we know, whom we had recommended to them. Oh, we are planning to use, say, Gabriel, you're a photographer. We're planning to use Gabriel. We like his work. For us, we have committed. And then someone says, if you trust him, I'm going to trust him. So people get helped. And these guys now become, these service providers become our go-to people, right? And I mean, to date, we meet them at functions where, they got a call to do a function and they come and meet us there. And oh, yeah, we know the couple. So they're like, okay, now we see where they might have met. But when we would meet people and, I speak to my guy friends and say, could you send me your wedding budget? Like, I can send it to you, but do not consider the pricing. Like, why? Like, there are too many favors in the pricing.
Okay.
There's Gabriel, who we got business for. Gabriel has given me a discount. There's so and so who has given me. So my transaction reflects the monetary component of the transaction. There's so much else which I can't really help you with because you don't have that relationship. And there are relationships where, you get to a point where you say, if I refer you to so and so, they are going to take that step to help you because I referred you. But then there are relationships where I say, I don't have a mature enough relationship to refer you to this person and they help you. Even I am, like, they are helping me purely because of me in my singularity.
Yeah.
Okay. And so sometimes, you also have to know what level of relationship you have with a person. When am I overreaching? When am I not? Yeah. But also leveraging the people you have. I remember I got pricing for a service, incredibly insane pricing, because I met a few friends of mine for drinks and I was frustrated. I was like, guys, there's this thing, but I think it's going to finish me. And the guy and these guys are nowhere close to fintech. We went to school, we went to secondary school and university together. That's all. We all went into very different professions. So this guy who's just curious says, what's the thing? So we chat and he tells me, I have a drinking buddy who will solve this problem for you. I was like, okay. So 2 weeks later, on a Sunday evening, lazy, you're thinking about just watching movies, turning in for the night early because you have an early day on Monday. This guy calls me at 7 p.m. and he's like, I am here with a gentleman. Says, come now and we are going for drinks. So we go and hang out from about 7 p.m. to midnight. And the guy says, you're a fun guy. I'm on leave. I'll be back in office in 2 weeks. Let's chat then. Stranger, all you have done is spend a good evening, and at the end he made a decision to help me simply because he thought I was a good person. But I would not have known if I had focused on who of my professional networks can help, because I have a social network which can also help. And so now one of the things I practice a lot, my wife must know what problem I'm facing, my close friends must know, because if they meet someone, they should be able to say, I think this is the person Christian should be talking to. That's kind of how I've grown the network of people I have, because beyond me, there are people who know the problems I am trying to solve. And so when they meet someone, they're able to quickly link you together. So, and I know most people don't like talking about work. I am a failure at that. I can go to the bar and come back home at 6 a.m. and we didn't go dancing. We sat at a table and talked about, fixated on one problem. And then we're like, oh my gosh, time has passed. So I am persistent. When I have a problem, I'm going to try and devote some personal time to just think about it with other people. Right? And I also have to pay back, in the sense that if Gab has a problem and he's saying he wants to solve the problem, I'm going to participate in any way I can. Worst case scenario, I've spent time with you. Worst positive scenario, I've learned something new. You meet people, they are in social enterprise, you learn how social enterprise works. You meet people in tourism, you learn, right? Because you don't know. I don't know if I will retire and run a tourist lodge, but any information I get beforehand helps me. I don't know if I'll run a bakery, but if I chat with someone who's running a bakery and struggling, I'm collecting information, which might be useful to me. But it also means if I have a friend who is starting a bakery, be like, I know who you need to talk to. They will help you, or at least you will share ideas. That's
More like seeing it from a connector perspective.
Yes.
Right?
Like basically, like when you think about Facebook's idea of a social network, just connect friends until you just have such a large network that if you need any type of information, it can filter through to you. Yeah. Because sometimes we say my friends are my friends, my work is my work. Fine. But if you, for example, passed away, or if your family passed away, in Uganda, if your workmates are not present, there's either a problem with you or your workmates. Do you get?
Yeah.
Because how people see it is, you spend a lot of time at work. You've invested your life at work. Something so beyond a transaction, something social must come out of it. You've invested in friends and family, something. And why we fixate on the monetary value, I mean, if I thought about what monetary value comes from my friends, I think now I can say it's huge, but I never set out to build monetary value from my friends and networks. But it takes time, and I think making friends takes time. Again, I was on Twitter and there's a lady who posted, she asked, what's that luxury that people don't think is a luxury? And another person responded, having dependable friends. That we think we are owed it, but there are people out there who, when they need help, they don't have it, right? And it's funny, especially in social aspects. You could be a billionaire, but if at your funeral only 4 people show up, you didn't have friends. No one is going to say you had friends, right? If you throw a party and no one turns up, it's not financial, it's just who are the people who will be there for you, and why do you think they must be there for you beyond the fact that they feel they should be there for you. They have that independent thinking. So when you have people around you, it's a luxury. It's the same as having money around you more than you need. So I think practicing making friendships, some of them are weird. I mean, I can meet someone in the bar, and I remember I met a lady, very interesting lady. I met her in the bar with my friends. Like, guys are hanging out. You haven't seen them in a while. You join them, then you sit. Guys are dancing. You sit at a table. Someone else joins you, and she reads me the miserable part of her life. And I was a bit tipsy, so I tell her, "Look, it's music, it's beer. We all have problems. Eh? Right now, drink a beer, smile through your problem. Now we are very good friends. We like every once in a while, we'll have a phone call, be like, okay, it's been a while. Let's sit, chat. One session, talk about problems. Next session, talk about how we've survived problems. Rinse, repeat. But when I met her, as I was very sure, too negative. We can't be friends because I also feel like I have a weight on my shoulders, and I've left home and work to come to try and reduce that stress. But it has helped because I will look at some of my friends, and when someone asks, so how do you know this person? I'm like, we don't have the time. I know them from here because of so and so. That I have friends whose family you cannot tell whether are my family or not. But they are my friend's friend. Right? Because I mean, you kind of get out what you put in. So if you see value, if I see value, I invest in the friendship. If I don't see, I kind of put it at arm's length. I don't discard because I don't know. I don't know the unknown. So if I can have you as an acquaintance, also you do this, but you're my acquaintance, fine. Maybe. Because another interesting thing was when our baby was born, she got in the early weeks, she got this thing called colic. Everyone fears colic, which is really a definition for hysterical crying babies, but you don't know what the problem is. They'll tell you that the digestive system is still developing, so they can't process gas, so they can't digest. Our baby didn't know how to shit. Babies don't know how to shit. She just clench her fist when she has gas, and if the gas doesn't move, she cries. Now we went to hospital after a week, and the pediatrician asked us, "So how are you dealing with the colic?" We said that people have told us this, people have told us. We said most of the things don't work. They soothe, they help in the moment. Kind of like when you have a broken leg and you take a painkiller, it doesn't heal the leg, it just numb the pain. And I was like, you guys, I know I kept meeting people who had also just gone through it, and they're like, it will pass after like 3 months, after like 6 months. I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't feel like that's not the level of comfort I want. So I remembered we had gone out sometime with one of my friends, and we were late. This bar was popular, so there were no tables. So we get in, there were some two ladies on a table. So the guy asks, he goes, talks to them, comes, do you mind sharing a table with them? I'm like, no, shared. One of them was a pediatrician. So like the girls chatted, then they shared their Instagrams. So think one, we were pregnant, but in our first trimester. So 7, 8 months later, I have a problem. And I say now, the pediatrician I know has said, guys, you just have to deal with this problem. I want a second opinion. So I go to my Instagram. My Instagram is the most inactive thing. I use it to, when my wife sends me a link, something on Instagram, I use it to go and open. So I figured if I go and check the people I follow on Instagram, I will land on that doctor. So I don't find the doctor, I land on her friend's Instagram. So I message her, I say, the baby has come. We're dealing with calling. Your friend doctor said she was a good pediatrician. Please give me her number. Like, you see, she doesn't, like, professionally, she doesn't give out her contact. You have to go to the clinic. Say, okay, please message her and ask her when she is available. She told us we went there, told us a few things to try out in 1 week and then go back. That week, done. What she told us worked today. She wasn't my friend. She wasn't an acquaintance. We just bumped into each other in the bar. So you just don't know why you meet people. Now, when we met her and she helped us, we've been seeing her as a pediatrician. She comes from a family, a doctor family. There's a friend of mine who had back issues. She had been treated by her cousin. There's another friend who has been treated by her father. So, in the network, right, we did know these people, okay? But it took one extra person.
Connect the dots.
Yes, because we went and told our friends, yeah, we went to so and Dr. Shinta. Oh, we also go to Dr. Shinta, but the father. We're like, so how come we didn't know? Like we hung out together. We didn't know. And yet we had the information that was needed. So I like to say if I can remember someone's name, or if I can remember that I talked to someone, that's fine. That's the least possible connection. Okay, I don't know when I'll use it, but I value the fact that I meet those people because you never know. Yeah.
I mean, it's an amazing state of mind. Like, I've seen you talk about like being appreciative, then even on the base level, like valuing things, right? Appreciate extending appreciation, then even on a fundamental level, just value things, value relationship, value um, value connections, basically. Yeah. Maybe a bit away from business relationship here and there, just like into work a bit. What's your view on multitasking?
Woo! I'm terrible at it. What I say is I'm terrible at it because I always attempt to multitask, but I don't multitask for context the way my wife multitasks. She'll have 3 things running with a similar deadline. I multitask by just having multiple things running with different deadlines.
Okay.
But then I'll try and say I have to give it timeshare. This urgent or mission critical, give it 50%. The rest of the things, split the balance so that you might not move too much. Just keep that thing moving, moving. Because still, if you start that project 1 year later, you're still at zero 1 year later.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do 2% every month,
Mm.
you're going to be at 24%, 25% at the end of the year. You've done a quarter of the work. That's how I approach multitasking, right? But I do think it's kind of that thing which is to each their own. I don't think it's a skill per se. I think it's a way of work. You can survive, you can thrive without multitasking,
Okay.
and you can thrive while multitasking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, but on a day-to-day perspective, like let's say like you have 5 things to do, right? How do you go through those 5 things?
I write them down.
Okay.
I pick the thing I must do.
Like you write them down, like on a, or you type it or something.
I it's kind of like heat of the moment.
Okay.
If I have a notebook, I write on a notebook. If I have my phone, I go to my phone notes and I write. If I'm near my computer, I write on my computer. But I write just the 5 things I need to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 today. The important one, I want to get it out by hook or crook. If I have space for 1, 2 others, get them done. Most times I try and get 3 out of 5 done. I carry forward the 2 to the next day. Okay. Plus the tasks of the next day. If those 2 end up being the most important things of that day, you kick them off first and then go. It's kind of like a trail of in and out. What that does is, if you keep postponing something, it will just enter your real backlog, which you will forget for some time, likely. Or if you keep giving that task a little bit of time, right, you will still achieve it. At a certain point, it will get out of your tray.
Yeah.
Because we are not busy all the time, but we also can't be productive all the time. But when there's that double coincidence, you go to work with energy for days and there is nothing new to do. And there is this project you started, right? Because I think one of the biggest problems is starting.
Yeah.
So if it's already moving and now you have the energy, on that day you're going to make some good progress. So you've shifted that project, even though it has not affected your priority work. And that's where sometimes you will deliver a whole lot of things by a certain deadline, and people ask themselves, where did you find the time? But it's really that there were things in backlog which just came due at the same time as a large mission critical thing you were doing. So you have multiple wins, right? That's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you plan your days somehow, or you just flow with it as it comes?
I plan it, but I leave slack. So I hate seeing my calendar marked for all times of the day. It just means if I make a mistake, if there's a change, I can't adjust quickly to it. So, like how I plan my calendar is the first 3 days of the week are work, and by work I mean internal to the business. That's my focus. The last 2 days are external to the business. How that helps me is, instead of having a new conversation with a prospective partner on Monday afternoon when shit could have hit the fan on the weekend and I need time to address this new problem which I didn't plan for, I'm having an external prospective conversation. I say no. Thursday, Friday, towards the end of the week when I've seen the trajectory of the week, if I need to give an internal problem more attention, I can cancel the meeting, and I'll have had enough time to cancel the meeting. You've seen on Tuesday, with the velocity we are going, I don't think I'll be available on Thursday, Friday, so I'm not available. Sorry, can we move it to the next week? So kind of allowing your plate enough space, because when I go for a buffet, I like to plate. I tell the guy, put the food here. Because I want the chicken here, I want it to remain dry. I want my salad not to mix with my rice. So I try to leave space. What the guys try and do is keep the plate. And so when you're trying to eat, I like moving my plate around. I switch, eat the salad. Switch to this. It's easier for me to keep breaking down the food. But when you hip it, getting through the food, just like getting through work, is hard. You can't see what you're doing because there's too much to do. You can't assess your progress because your calendar is full. Even mindset wise, those are the kind of days where you feel, I have to just get through this day. Because no matter what I do within this hour, I have work in the next hour, I have work in the next hour. So you kind of just get through. Whereas if you have this activity a break, you then ask yourself, am I ready to take a break, or do I continue this activity, or do I start on the next one early? That's how I find leaving space in my calendar keeps reorganizing my mind. Like I'll say, oh, am I out of time? Then we check, oh, I have 30 more minutes on this task. So if I had to deliver it within 2 hours, but I had planned 1 hour for it, I have an extra 1 hour to improve the quality of the work I'm delivering, as opposed to I have to deliver within the time, whether or not it's quality work.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, you mentioned something in the other conversation now about how you write down those 5 things. What do you think it does for you, or why do you think you do it?
For me, it's to be top of mind. There are instances where I've been doing something else and I find that I have been thinking about something. Like I'm executing a certain task, I'm going to the end of it, and my brain has been organizing the next task because it already knows the flow of things. Whereas when I have tasks and I don't organize them, I don't know, like I don't have that advantage of preparing. Like I'll find myself saying I have to do a presentation. I either take too long on a presentation or such a short time. The times I take a very short time, by the time I open the PowerPoint presentation to start writing anything, the flow of the slides is in my head. The information I need, I've already organized where I'm supposed to get it from. I've not done anything, but I kind of have this. The slides are going to be like this. They are going to flow like this. This is the critical information you should give people. This is the type of audience. It's happening in my mind. I haven't started that task. So suddenly, by the time I have to do the task, I've done half the work in planning. But I get that by actually scribbling down my flow, things, the way I want my brain to think about that day. The same way, an agenda, when you're an MC, you write down the agenda not because you can't. I've attended enough weddings to naturally say the bride and groom are going to walk in, they're going to have lunch, so and so is going to give a speech, they're going to dance, but it's still cluttered in your mind. And so you don't know, should this speech have taken 3 minutes or 5 minutes? Who should have come after? What joke is appropriate? Can I pay attention to? Because your mind is just too cluttered. And sometimes when my mind is cluttered, I prefer to work from home. I say, look, when I go to the office, I'm going to see Gabriel. He has this thing he wants. Raymond, there's going to be this sense of urgency on tasks because the people are present, yet mentally I'm not ready to do that task. So get out of that environment. Do the task your mind wants to do. Yeah.
So I I was thinking about something, but I think I'll just save that for maybe another conversation. I want to ask this combo final question.
Okay.
Um, so they I see it like three phases.
Okay.
You know, you there like in the conversation you mentioned that the starting could be is usually the like where the challenge lies, right? So I'm also seeing it in terms of sometimes, most times actually, the starting is where the challenge is. But there are sometimes that we find people able to struggle to start something, right? Then they fall into the issue of, oh, the continuation. Some then struggle out of that and get into how to complete the issue, the task. And we understand that in business, finished product has to go through these three things, whereby you can then deliver it to make it usable to the user, right? Or something useful to the user. So how have you over time navigated these phases? And what strategies have you used? Like, how do you prime yourself? Okay, times when you want to start, how do you start? When you want to it to continue, how do you get it to keep going? Then how do you see it to completion?
Mm, okay. I mean, I've struggled with all those aspects. The one I am now more comfortable with is starting.
Mm.
So one of my bosses said we do not document work. So I promised myself whenever I have an idea or a concept, the starting is getting it out of your head.
Okay.
Put it on paper. Whether it's a 3-page introduction or it's 2 lines, what you're thinking about. Put it on a paper. It's kind of like empty your mind of that,
Okay.
so that now there is demand for the next thing. When the next thing comes, again, go and write it. Like, keep emptying your thoughts about that thing onto a document,
Mm.
then go and read. Go and read and see if it makes sense. The first thing is now to kind of, you're organizing your thoughts, but from outside your brain. Because a lot of the time there is that block. You have so many thoughts about something, but they are not organized and they're all floating in there. So you need to get them out into like one solid block of things. This is, I think about it, but I could do this approach, this approach, this approach. Get it all out. The consistency and the perseverance should be where the most pain is. Going to gym, all you have to do, walk to the gym. If you're like me, you have to master the courage to go and meet a gym instructor again. Says there's a guy going to shout at me. There's a guy who injured me. I'm now vulnerable to a new guy injuring me. That is a blocker for the start. But then you will still find the energy to go to the gym or to start, a new business. But the start has a shorter time period than the continuation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But you've not prepared yourself mentally for it. So I focus myself more on mental preparation. So for instance, I haven't done short-term business projects. Oh, I tried some a while back. I tried selling watches. I tried selling perfume and women's lipstick. Shortest projects of my life. Well, I think the longest one was like 6 months. The long projects, planting trees, it took 5 years. I now want to do coffee. The earliest you can get a harvest from coffee is 2 years.
Mm.
I like those projects because they don't require a burst of energy for a short time. They ask you, look, you want to do coffee 2 years. Are you ready to do the work in 2 years or not? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because even in terms of mindset, immediate gratification has a dopamine effect.
Mm.
Prolonged gratification doesn't have dopamine. And so the way your body reacts to possibilities. If you do this today, if you bet now, you could win $1 million. Excitement, $1 million now. If you work for the next 20 years, you are guaranteed $1 million. You're still both getting $1 million, but there's no excitement. You're like, 20 years, all that time, what am I going to be doing? And yet, actually, you have time to do so much more during that time. So I try to always prepare myself that the thing you want to do, you're not going to achieve in a short time. It's going to take time. Mentally process that. Then now ask yourself, what did you have, or what do you tend to have? Short burst of energy. If you have short burst of energy, now try and have a short burst of energy now, 3 months later, because you're going to need those short bursts to try and achieve something, because you need to do it for 2 years. You can't burn out in month number one. Or second, since you have to do a project for 2 years, you need to start allocating time across the time horizon. You can't take on too many projects because the first one won't have completed. You can't start the second one, or you can't start the third. So be patient. That's how I try to now prepare myself before I embark on the continuation, setting the mindset, setting the tone that I need to have, right? Because remember when I told you get depressed because you're not within the timeline? It's because you set the expectation already. So trying to set a realistic expectation of the project I want to do. And then that's when now you have the execution, and I keep mocking myself. You knew it was 2 years. You said you could have exited, no one forced you. Yeah? And it's not urgent. You have 1 year and 8 months to go. So relax. It's like you're countering yourself. You need the good cop, bad cop kind of situation to happen in your mind for you to just get the project along. Because you start a business, you're excited, opening day, you cut cake. 1 year down the road, you don't cut cake. Yet you have persevered. Or you look at the business and you're like, it's no longer glamorous. But that's the real work. Yeah? It's like getting married. You fear the wedding day because you're thinking, the money, the parents, the bride, are we ready? You're still preparing. The marriage starts the moment the wedding ends. You're no longer in a gown, you're no longer in a suit, there's no champagne. You're home every day. Same thing. But they've said till day. So are you trying to bring your death closer? Or so the same way you treat your mentality, the way you treat yourself when you're taking an emotionally long decision is very different from short ones. And I tend to like the long-term approach because if you achieve it early, celebrate the fact that you've done it early, but don't be frustrated that it is coming late. Right? You can set a longer timeline. No one is forcing you to set a short timeline. But with building a short timeline, you're now asking yourself to do more in a short time. So that's my approach to it. And then really finishing, because you have a long timeline, if you're not ready to finish, I say procrastinate a little. Yeah?
Okay.
Because you need the energy to do it. So just make sure you are progressing. If last Tuesday you are at 1% and you don't want to finish this Tuesday, make sure you are at 2%. Because ultimately, no matter how long you procrastinate, for as long as you are doing the work, 100 is a definite. Like it doesn't also grow.
Okay.
You get so if you reach 99 and you have been growing by 1% every week, you can't delay any further than next week. Unless you say, I've abandoned the project. For as long as you stay on the project, you cannot delay further than next week. That's the thing I try to continuously make small progress. Don't be afraid of extending the deadline. But for as long as you're consistent with small progress, it is inevitable. It's like aging. The cells grow by 1 millisecond. But that's why ultimately you become your age. So whether people use anti-aging creams, it changes how you look. But your cells say, I have a record of how long I've been at this thing and I've never paused. You get?
Yeah.
So taking that the same way you grow, because you can't stop growing, it's the growth is the consistency of the cells growing by a certain very finite but small microscopic change. Change the project by that. After a while, it will come.
Mm. Well, I said that was the last thought. Well, I I have
Well done.
something small.
Yeah.
So you just it's just from the thought this last thought. So you said something about like extending deadline. So how do you how do you think about deadline extension and integrity, the connection? Like how do you think it can affect, or how do you feel about it? Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's good to keep your deadlines. It's good work ethic. It is good personal ethic. Okay. When I said it's okay to extend the deadline, I gave conditions.
Okay. Context.
Yes. The condition is you're continuing to do the work.
Okay.
It's different from extending your deadline and doing nothing. Because when you extend the deadline and you're doing nothing, essentially you've abandoned the project, right? I would not even consider that as extending a deadline, right? You're constructing. I'm constructing right now. I had said I would be ready in the house December. But I looked at everything I had to do by December and said I cannot be able to execute that. So I want to reduce the number of things I'm doing. But it means the project, the plot cannot stay the same between when I made the decision to extend the deadline and the original deadline. If I haven't improved, I abandoned the project. It keeps you accountable because it tells you if you're not doing anything, why are you extending the deadline? If there is nothing that must happen, why are you extending the deadline? I've extended the deadline because I don't have the finances required to buy material.
Okay.
I've extended the deadline because the people that need to be there are not available. I've extended the deadline because the pace at which I am working, I will not reach it. It has to be within that context.
Yeah.
Because you have to then be accountable. If I told Gab I need to do the work by this date, because Gab has to start his piece next.
Yeah.
There is that
Dependency.
yes, that dependency.
Mm.
There is a cost to me extending the deadline. It is Gab's work. Okay. So if I am to extend the deadline on that project, what am I doing with that time? Is it that there's another project that is more urgent, more pressing? And if so, what am I going to do? And how do I make sure I am still moving this project slowly? So even me with work, when I don't I don't want to say it 100%. Most of the time, I don't stop something. I slow it down. It's no longer the make or break for the business. I slow it down. Why? If I thought of embarking on a project
and I gave it enough thought, then I will only abandon that project if there is a change in my thought process and understanding of the project. If that has not changed, then I simply say the mix of resources, the amount of time I have for this and the people is not enough. So slow it down. Delay the delivery date, but I must deliver because I've already seen the benefit of it. Yeah, it's critical to understand that because there are some engagements which I have pushed back by more than 2 years. But I never say, guys, we are never going to do this thing because I also believe in it. I say, I thought by this time we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. We don't have the 5. We have 2. What can we do with the 2? If there is nothing, then let's wait for a third. But if we can do with the 1, I must execute on the 1 because the project I must keep reducing the amount of work we need to do eventually. Yeah, and that then is the integrity, as I said, so that when you disappoint the person, they know that it wasn't, out of negligence, out of malice. It was, I tried all forms of ways to deliver on time. I failed because of this. I have a justification and I'm accountable to you.
Yeah, I think that makes because there are some extensions that, as we know, we have implication like impactful like
in reality, every extension has an implication. If you want to buy something right now and you have the money, the moment you extend, 1 second later, you're hungry. You need to buy food. You're going to use the money that could have bought the other aspect. Now ask yourself, your brain mental, if you had not had that money, you'd have solved that hunger. Okay? But because you had the money, you used it up. Now, when you have to make that expenditure, you will say, let's wait another week. And then you will consume the money for that week. Let's wait another week. You get? Yeah. I am a criminal of that. So a lot of the time I say, I should have done the transaction the moment I thought of it. Because I've now opened myself up to all the things which were not as important at the time. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.